You know that moment when you sit down to study, and within a few minutes, something starts to slip. Not your effort, not your intention, just your attention. You read a line, then another, and somehow none of it stays. You go back, reread, try harder this time, but it feels like your mind is moving through the words without ever holding on to them. And after a while, it starts to feel heavy, slow, almost like you're forcing something that was never meant to work this way. Most people see this and assume something simple, that you're distracted, that you're lazy, that you just need more discipline. But that interpretation misses something important, because when you look a little closer, this pattern shows up even when you care, even when you're trying, even when the pressure is real. So it's probably not about effort at all. There's something else happening underneath it. And it becomes especially clear when you're trying to study something like biology, a subject filled with layers, processes, unfamiliar terms, information that doesn't just ask you to memorize, but to understand connections that aren't immediately visible. Most people approach it the same way they approach everything else: read more, repeat more, spend more time. But there's more going on here than people realize, because your brain isn't designed to absorb information through passive exposure. It's designed to survive through meaning. There's a well known idea in cognitive science that memory doesn't strengthen through repetition alone, but through something called active retrieval. When your brain struggles to recall something, even imperfectly, it signals that information as important. It starts building stronger pathways around it. But when you only read, even carefully, your brain often treats it as background noise, something to recognize, not something to store. So the problem isn't that you can't learn biology fast. It's that you've been using a method your brain doesn't fully respond to. And if you think about it, this pattern didn't start with biology. It likely formed much earlier, in environments where learning meant sitting still, staying quiet, absorbing information without interacting with it, where success looked like remembering what was shown, not exploring it in your own way. Over time, your brain adapted. It learned how to get through information, not necessarily how to internalize it. And that adaptation made sense. It worked in the context it was built for. But now, when the information becomes more complex, more layered, more dependent on understanding rather than memorization, that same strategy starts to feel slow, frustrating, almost incompatible. And none of that means something is wrong with you. It just means your brain is still using a pattern that once made sense. There's also something quieter happening beneath this. When information feels disconnected, your brain doesn't prioritize it. Biology, especially, can feel like a collection of random terms until something links them together. And without that link, your mind naturally drifts. Not because you're unfocused, but because there's nothing anchoring your attention. So when people say just concentrate more, it can feel strangely unhelpful, because concentration isn't something you force. It's something that emerges when your brain finds meaning. And this is where things shift in a way that feels almost unnatural at first. When you stop trying to store information and instead start interacting with it. When instead of rereading, you pause and try to recall. Even if it's incomplete, when instead of memorizing terms, you connect them, turn them into something that makes sense in your own words. Suddenly, the process changes speed, not because you're pushing harder, but because your brain is finally doing what it was built to do. And there's a strange paradox in that. The faster way to learn doesn't feel fast in the moment. It feels slower, more effortful, slightly uncomfortable, because now you're not just recognizing information, you're engaging with it, testing it, letting your brain struggle just enough to reshape it. But over time, that discomfort turns into something else: clarity, retention, a kind of quiet confidence that the information is actually yours now. And it's important to say this clearly. This way of learning isn't better than any other in some universal sense. Different people respond to different methods, different environments shape different strengths. But if the usual approach has always felt a little misaligned for you, this might explain why, not as a fix, just as a different way of understanding what's been happening. Because the truth is, your experience makes sense. The way your attention drifts, the way information sometimes refuses to stick, the way certain methods feel strangely ineffective. None of it is random. It's patterned, predictable, and in many ways, adaptive. And when you start to see it that way, something shifts internally. You stop seeing yourself as someone who can't focus or learn slowly, and start recognizing that maybe You were never meant to learn in the way you were taught. There's a different rhythm your mind responds to, a different kind of engagement it's been waiting for. And once you begin to notice that, you might start seeing other patterns too.